You're gonna talk into it. You're gonna have this loud thing in the background.
No.
It was
Oh, wait. Is there like a couple?
Yeah, just
it
read
was
it.
a while ago, faced
Yeah.
with some obstacles that I wrote a song. Well, it's more of a prayer. And I'll give you the first few lines, and then Neil Larson on the Hammond B3 and the Whip Sisters will unfold the song. If it be your will that I speak no more, and my voice be still as it was before, I will speak no more. I shall abide until
Who is this?
I am spoken for, if it be your will. If it be your will that a voice be true, from this broken hill I will sing to you. From this broken hill all your praises they shall ring, if it be your will to let me sing.
So, yes, this is the collection, volume 1 of the Life books by Ralph Waldo Trine, and so we were talking about this, and as I said, this the whole thing is worth reading, but I wanted to take an excerpt from page 10 and 11. So he who, forgetting self, makes the object of his life service, helpfulness, and kindliness to others, finds his whole nature growing and expanding, himself becoming large-hearted, magnanimous, kind, loving, sympathetic, joyous, and happy, his life becoming rich and beautiful. For instead of his own little life alone, he has entered into and has part in 100, 1,000, and a countless numbers of other lives. And every success, every joy, every happiness coming to each of these comes as such to him, for he has a part in each and all. And thus it is that one becomes a prince among men, a queen among women. Why, one of the very fundamental principles of life is so much love in return. So much love, so much growth. So much love, so much power. So much love, so much life. Strong, healthy, rich, exulting, and abounding life. The world is beginning to realize the fact that love, instead of being a mere indefinite something, is a vital and living force, the same as electricity is a force, though perhaps of a different nature. The same great fact we are learning in regard to thought, that thoughts are things, that thoughts are forces, the most vital and powerful in the universe, that they have form and substance and power, the quality of the power determined, as it is, by the quality of the life in whose organism the thoughts are engendered. And so, when a thought is given birth, it does not end there, but takes form, and as a force, it goes out and has its effect upon other minds and lives, the effect being determined by its intensity and the quality of the prevailing emotions, and also by the emotions dominating the person at the time the thoughts are engendered and given form. Science, while demonstrating the great facts it is today demonstrating in connection with the mind and its relation to and effects upon the body, is also finding from its very laboratory experiments that each particular kind of thought and emotion has its own peculiar qualities, and hence its own peculiar effects or influences, and these it is classifying with scientific accuracy. A very general classification, in just a word, would be those of a higher and those of a lower nature. Some of the chief ones among those of the lower nature are anger, hatred, jealousy, malice, rage. Their effect, especially when violent, is to emit a poisonous substance into the system, or rather to set up a corroding influence which transforms the healthy and life-giving secretions of the body into the poisonous and the destructive. When one, for example, is dominated, even if for but a moment, by a passion of anger or rage, there is set up in the system what might be justly termed a bodily thunderstorm, which has the effect of souring or corroding the normal and healthy secretions of the body, and making them so that instead of life-giving, they become poisonous. This, if indulged in to any extent, sooner or later induces the form of disease that this particular state of mind and emotion or passion gives birth to, and in turn becomes chronic. We shall ultimately find, as we are beginning to so rapidly today, that practically all disease has its origin in perverted mental states or emotions, that anger, hatred, fear, worry, jealousy, lust, as well as all milder forms of perverted mental states and emotions, has each its own peculiar poisoning effects and induces each in its own peculiar form of disease, for all life is from within out. Then some of the chief ones belonging to the other class, mental states and emotions of the higher nature are love, sympathy, benevolence, kindliness, and good cheer. These are the natural and the normal, and their effect, when habitually entertained, is to stimulate a vital, healthy, bounding, purifying, and life-giving action, the exact opposite of the others, and these very forces set into abounding activity will, in time, counteract and heal the disease-giving effects of their opposites. Their effects upon the countenance and features in inducing the highest beauty that can dwell there are also marked and also all-powerful, so much that in regard to the effects of one's thought forces upon the self, a word more in regard to their effects upon others. Our prevailing thought forces determine the mental atmosphere we create around us, and all who come within its influence are affected in one way or another according to the quality of that atmosphere, and though they may not always get the exact thoughts, they nevertheless get the effects of the emotions dominating the originator of the thoughts, and hence the creator of this particular mental atmosphere, and the more sensitively organized the person, the more sensitive he or she is to this atmosphere, even at times to getting the exact and very thoughts. So even in this, the prophecy is beginning to be fulfilled. There is nothing hid that shall not be revealed. If the thought forces sent out by any particular life are those of hatred or jealousy or malice or fault-finding or criticism or scorn, these same thought forces are roused and sent back from others, so that one is affected not only by reason of the unpleasantness of having such thoughts from others, but they also in turn affect one's own mental states, and through these his bodily conditions, so that so far as even the welfare of self is concerned, the indulgence in thoughts and emotions of this nature are most expensive and most detrimental, most destructive. If, on the other hand, the thought forces sent out be those of love, of sympathy, of kindliness, of cheer, and goodwill, these same forces are aroused and sent back so that their pleasant, ennobling, warming, and life-giving effects one feels and is influenced by. And so again, so far even as the welfare of self is concerned, there is nothing more desirable, more valuable, and life-giving. There comes from others than exactly what one sends to and hence calls forth from them. And would we have all the world love us, we must first then love all the world. Why, there is nothing that can stand before this wonderful transmuting power of love. So far even as the enemy is concerned, I may not be to blame if I have an enemy, but I am to blame if I keep him as such, especially after I know of this wonderful transmuting power. Have I then an enemy, I will absolutely refuse to recognize him as such. And instead of entertaining the thoughts of him that he entertains of me, instead of sending him like thought forces, I will send him only thoughts of love, of sympathy, of brotherly kindness, and magnanimity. But in a short time it will be until he feels these, and is influenced by them. Then in addition I will watch my opportunity, and whenever I can I will even go out of my way to do him some little kindness. Before these forces he cannot stand, and by I shall find that he who today is my bitterest enemy is my warmest friend, and it may be my staunchest supporter. No, the wise man is he who, by that wonderful alchemy of love, transmutes the enemy into the friend, transmutes the bitterest enemy into the warmest friend and supporter. Certainly, this is what the Master meant when he said, "Love your enemies, do good to them that hate you, and despitefully use you." And then comes the application, the practice. Yeah. The man who can't get beyond himself, his own aggrandizement and interests, must of necessity be small, petty, personal, and at once marks his own limitations. While he whose life is a life of service and self-devotion has no limits, for he thus puts himself at once on the side of the universal, and this, more than all else combined, gives a tremendous power in oratory. Such a one can mount as on the wings of an eagle, and nature herself seems to come forth, and give a great soul of this kind means and material whereby to accomplish his purposes, whereby the great universal truths go direct to the minds and hearts of his hearers, to mold them, to move them. For the orator is he who molds the minds and hearts of his hearers in the great molds of universal and eternal truth, and then moves them along a definite line of action, not he who merely speaks pieces to them. How?
That's you.
Thanks.
I want to copy that. I want to copy that.
That's
Whoa.
Ralph Waldo Trine.
Yeah, what's
What?
the pages?
What?
What's the number of the pages?
Oh, those are pages. It started on page 10, and it goes up to page 12, and then finished on page 14. And that's from What All the World's...
When it says about the orator.
What All the World's...
You move the people in a different direction.
Right.
And
The orator is he who molds the minds and hearts of his hearers in the great molds of universal and eternal truth,
right.
And then moves them along a definite line of action, not he who merely speaks pieces to them. And the reason for the action is because, like he says earlier in other parts of the book, that the feeling of love is a potentiality. Love is potentiality, the action of kindliness, beneficence, service and helpfulness, service and love and kindliness, and these all the other attributes, that those are must be put into effect for it to actualize the love. And it's much more powerful as a reality, as an actuality, than as a potentiality. And that's very important. And so that is a lesson for today. That's a good one. Yeah, it's more than one or two. So, bendiciones, blessings, love, peace, satyagraha, bodhisattva, maitreya, shanti, amen.